Hello there, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Lessons with Guitar Man. My name's Aaron, and I'll be your designated driver here today for this great lesson on comping organ chords. This is a really cool idea, something I think every guitar player should at least attempt to learn a little bit in their career. That's a really easy thing to do. I originally learned this technique from the great guitar player Danny Gatton. He's no longer with us, unfortunately, but one of the greatest guitar players of all time. Unbelievable virtuoso on the guitar. I just kind of took his ideas and went with it in my own little way and figured why not show you guys what I learned from him. Alright, so let's go ahead and dive in there and see what's going on. Now this song is in the key of A. The changes were an A7 to a D7 or a D9 to an A7 to an E7, just a standard blues. So the chords were basically go like so. To a D7, and back to an A, and then to E, back to D, what exactly was I doing? Well, I think the first lick I was doing there was this thing that sounded kind of like this. Now, what we got going on here is an A chord to a D chord to an E minor chord to a D chord to an A chord. So what exactly is that? I mean, that's a little strange, right? Why would you play an A, a D, and an E minor all over an A chord? Well, you could look at it in many ways. It really just gives music a little bit of movement. Instead of having that static A, you're kind of playing an A, a D, and an E all over the duration of an A chord. Now, what you have in the key of A, if you were doing that, it would be an A, a D, and an E minor, like so, if you knew your bar chords. Right? I just kind of inverted it down here a little bit. Second fret A, triad a D, here's your D, put that down here, with the third in the bass, okay? And then an E minor inversion, which some of you may know this, E minor, which is D, D sharp, E minor, and if you put this note up here, you got, looks like a D7 moved up here, and that's the chord. Learning how to do that is kind of a feat in itself. Now I use these three fingers for that. You could use these two. You could go. Now I like to use these three just because it's easier for me, but I know a lot of you out there probably have a hard time using your pinky, so maybe learn how to do it both ways. I like. After you start to get a little familiar with this, and what you want to do then is maybe mix it up a little bit, and instead of going, you can pause on, say, the second chord or the third chord or both chords or whatever, so you could be like, kind of come up with your own little way of weaving that in there and giving it your own little flair. You really can do anything. The next one I went to, I was doing the exact same thing, but when you go to the D, or D, I was doing the exact same thing down here going. The 1, the 4, and then the minor 5. D, G, and A minor, or 1, 4, 5 minor, okay? And that's how this little riff works. So the third one, I think I just moved that up 2 spaces and over. Now we're going over the E, because this is an A blues, right? We got A to D to A, and then up to the 5. So when we're over the 5 chord here in the blues, or the E7th, getting ready to turn the song around, what you're going to do is the same thing you did in D, but move this D up 2 spaces to here. So you got D, D sharp, E, and you do the same chord pattern. So in E, you got E, A, right? So 1, Alright, so you got E, A, and then the 5 is going to be a B, but we want to make it a minor, so you got B minor, and then A, and back to E. Alright, which is the same thing we did here, we just moved it up 2 spaces here. We had D, G, A minor, G, D. And then you move that up, 1, 2, or D, D sharp, E, A, B minor, A, E, A, B minor, A. Okay? And when you put that in context, so there you go. There's a nice little way that you can go ahead and use this technique down here in this little area of the fingerboard. At some point in that, I kind of came up here and I was doing... So what is that? Well, what we got here is basically the same exact thing I was doing here. I'm moving it into this position, and what I have is an A, so F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, okay, and then a little piece of a D, which if you know your bar chords, here's your D, so I'm using, now I want to grab a piece of an E minor here, right, so if I'm using the E minor, what I want to do is grab this right here, here's your E minor bar chord, right, so if I just use that piece, it looks like, what that sounds like in context is 1, 2, ready, go. Now something else you could do with that is move that up to right here and do that over top of a D, because right here is a D chord, okay? So, you know, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D. Okay, so there's D. So obviously we can do the exact same thing that we did here on A up here on D. So it would be D, G, A minor. You could grab it one this way or this way. Kind of hard to get, but if your guitar actually has enough room up here, you can squeak your hands in there and grab it. But if you can't, you could just do... and just skip over that A minor right there and just do the D to G. Or you could try to slip it in there. So you could use that one here and this one here, and you got yourself a really neat organ type comping idea for your playing. So the next thing we want to do is play this over an E chord, and here's a really good one for E. Right, so you got E, A, B minor, A, and if you just use the pieces, it's all right, so let's go ahead and put all those together, see what we can't come up with there. 1, 2, ready, go. Another idea that you can use here in this really cool organ comping idea is you can actually go to the flatted 7th and back into the root, flatted 7th, back into the root, and you can actually go back one from the flatted 7th and go to the minor 6, in this case an F sharp. So you could use these ones in there too. And what you basically have there is an A chord, a flatted 7th or a G chord in the key of A, and then an F sharp minor, which would be this technically if you know your bar chords. There's your F sharp minor. There's an F sharp minor right there, the top piece of it, and that's the 6th of A. But essentially you have obviously you can do this same exact thing over the D. You come up here, but in this case it's going to be D, C, B minor, C, D, C, B minor, C, okay? And then lastly on E, you're going to have E, D, C sharp minor, D, E, D, C sharp minor, D. So you essentially have the root chord, move it back a whole step or 2 spaces, 1, 2, then move it back 1 space and do a minor chord. And then come back to D, and then back to A. So even if you don't know the names of the chords, it's okay as long as you do here, move back 2 spaces, move back 1 space and bar, and move this finger. Alright, and that's totally legit comping like an organ over top of the chord that you're on. So let's go ahead and loop that one around one time and see what we can't come up with. So 1, 2, ready, go. Alright, so there's another really cool idea that you can use for this organ type comping, and the last one that I want to go over here, where you add in the minor 2nd, or the 2nd note of each one of these chords, and that one is going to be, in this case, A. We move up 2 spaces and make a minor chord, it's going to be a B minor, okay? And you can slide that in there as well on top of, this. You can slide up 1, so here's home. You can slide up here, do a minor, and come back home. Minor, come back home. Minor, come back home. Same with D. Minor, come back home. Minor, come back home. A, minor, come back home. Or B minor, A. B minor, A. E minor, D. E minor, D. Now in this case, you might want to just go flat your finger out because it's so hard to reach. And same for E. So let's go ahead and try that one time and see what happens with this little progression. 1, 2, ready, go. Alright, so now we have an idea where these ideas are coming from and what kind of chords we're using. So in the beginning I had the 1 over the A chord. Over a root chord you put the root, the 4 chord or the D, and then the minor 5, which gives you that sound. Probably heard this in all kinds of rock, blues, jazz tunes. And then I added in the root, flatted 7th, minor 6, flatted 7th, root, and then lastly root, minor 2nd, root, minor 2nd. And when you add all these things together, you got all kinds of chords that you can choose from when you're playing over, say, a root A here. You can be mix them all together and match them any way you want, eventually you kind of get to a place where you do whatever you want to do and make it sound your way. What I might try and do is just kind of come up with a little rhythm idea and, add a few of these chords together and do something like this. So 1, 2, ready, go. Something along those lines. So let me go ahead and play through the classic tune Corrina Corrina, and I'll use these organ comping ideas over the chords, and you'll have a real good idea at what you can do with this. Alright, well that's a wrap on this video. You can do whatever you want and it will sound as elaborate or as simple as you want. What this will do will give you a general idea of how you can comp some chords over a 1, 4, 5, or really any major or 7th chord for that matter, using this organ type comping technique. It doesn't matter if you understand what the numbers are or the names of the chords, as long as you know where to put your fingers, you can do whatever you want and it should sound pretty cool, whether you're playing a country tune, a bluegrass tune, a rock tune, a jazz tune. This idea and technique I've used over countless kinds of music and it always seems to work pretty well. Alright, well that's a wrap on this video. If you have any questions for me, feel free to send me an email listed below in the description. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and I'll be seeing you down the road.